abusadores que son, eso no se hace, abusadores. Me mataron a mi hija y a mi nietecito. Abusadores los dos, van a pagar ellos y todo el que esté incluido también por abusadores.
In this episode, we delve into the heartbreaking story of Keishla Rodríguez Ortiz, a 27-year-old woman employed at a pet grooming salon in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Known for her radiant smile, caring nature, and deep affection for animals, Keishla was admired by all who knew her. Despite her dedication to work, she prioritized her relationships, cherishing moments with her close-knit family and treasuring the bond she shared with her sister, her best friend. Because of her genuine spirit and caring nature, Keishla was like a magnet, easily making friends and gaining the interest of many men around her. One of those men happened to be Félix Verdejo. Félix gained widespread recognition in Puerto Rico thanks to his career as a professional boxer. Born on May 19, 1993, he predominantly competed in the lightweight division, proudly representing Puerto Rico in the 2012 Olympics held in London. Alongside this notable achievement, Félix secured numerous regional and international titles during his professional journey, boasting an impressive record of 27 wins and 2 losses. Despite his professional boxing experience, Félix still spent most of his time in San Juan. At the young age of 18, Félix was on what felt like a high. His boxing career was accelerating, and he quickly garnered attention and respect throughout San Juan and beyond. During this time, Félix also met a young girl, Elise Marie Santiago Sierra, and although she was only 14 years old at the time, Félix and Elise would eventually become a couple, making their relationship official by telling their parents about it. In fact, Elise's parents had no problem with their daughter dating him despite the age gap between them. Over time, Félix found himself increasingly noticed by women who seemed to admire him for his boxing prowess and achievements. This attention began to inflate his ego, leading him to betray Elise by engaging in affairs with other women, including Keishla Rodríguez Ortiz. Félix and Keishla shared a childhood connection, having grown up in the same neighborhood of San Juan, Puerto Rico. Despite being in a committed relationship, Félix was drawn to Keishla and actively pursued her, captivated by something about her that he simply couldn't resist. Instead of ending his relationship with Elise to pursue Keishla, Félix chose to maintain both relationships, concealing his affair with Keishla from those around him. However, individuals close to Keishla, including her sister Berelise and mother, were aware of the couple's involvement despite Félix's engagement to Elise. Despite disapproval, they refrained from intervening out of respect for Keishla's autonomy. Aware of the impropriety of her relationship with Félix due to his commitment to Elise, Keishla struggled with her feelings for him, but found herself unable to sever ties. Félix represented her first true love, and despite her efforts, she couldn't bring herself to let him go, even if it meant being involved with him while he remained with Elise. Keishla held on to the hope that Félix would eventually fulfill his promise to leave Elise, as he had assured her in the past. However, Keishla soon realized this wasn't going to happen when Félix officially tied the knot with Elise in 2016, when Elise was only 19 years old. At this point in time, both Félix and Elise had amassed large social media followings and were relatively successful as a couple. Elise even opened her own beauty store to the public. In August of 2016, several months after getting married to Elise, Félix got into a motorcycle accident and was listed in serious condition due to head injuries and lacerations throughout the body. His trainer believed that this could be it for him and that he wouldn't get a chance to return to the boxing ring again, but Félix proved everyone around him wrong by recovering quickly from his injuries and returning to boxing again. You might expect that a near-death experience would prompt Félix to change his ways and cease his infidelity towards his wife, Elise. However, this wasn't the case. Instead, he persisted in maintaining his relationship with Keishla while also pursuing other romantic interests outside of both partnerships. In September 2019, Felix shared a photo on social media featuring himself and his pregnant wife, Elise, proudly displaying her baby bump. Just a month later, he publicly announced the birth of their daughter, Miranda. To outsiders, Félix Verdejo appeared as a devoted father and committed spouse. Yet, beneath this facade, a complex web of undisclosed affairs was unfolding, unbeknownst to anyone outside their inner circle. While posting family photos of himself, Elise, and his daughter on social media, Felix continued to maintain a relationship with Keishla, who still struggled to let go of the man she loved dearly. During this time, Ellie suspected that something might be going on, but Felix constantly denied having an affair. In the meantime, Keishla was also getting tired of being the other woman. She wanted to break it off, but felt like she was in too deep. After all, Felix was her first love. Besides that, Felix wouldn't allow her to move on. On more than one occasion, Felix told Keishla that if she ever decided to date another man, he was going to harm whoever it might be physically. While this frightened her, it also made her think that he cared for her much more than he did. In 2020, while going through Felix's phone, Elise found messages between him and other women, including Keishla. Elise flipped out, kicked Felix out of the house, and told him that he wouldn't be able to see his daughter, Miranda, again. This naturally upset Felix. Not only was he dealing with this drama in his relationship, but his career was also on a downward spiral, and things seemed to be getting worse and worse. Because of this, Felix did take a break from seeing Keishla. But the break was short-lived. By 2021, Keishla discovered she was pregnant and knew that it was Felix's baby. He was the only man she'd been with at that time. Not knowing what to do, Keishla immediately called her sister to give her the news and ask for advice. Keishla told her sister that she didn't want to get an abortion because she was 27 years old and ready to have a child, even if it meant being a single mother because Felix wouldn't be around. Several days after telling her sister about her pregnancy, Keishla reached out to Felix and gave him the news while hoping that he would be okay with it. However, that wasn't the case. Félix Verdejo was angry and encouraged Keishla to get an abortion. Keishla let him know that she didn't want to get an abortion, but Felix wouldn't take no for an answer, so he threatened her. After realizing his threats weren't going to work, Felix decided to ask Keishla to meet up with him in the coming days. But before meeting up with Keishla, Felix decided to pay an old friend a visit. The friend, Luis Antonio Cadiz, worked in a machine shop and was involved in illegal activities. So, what would Felix possibly want to discuss with Luis? He decided to meet up with him to ask for help getting rid of Keishla. He wanted her out of the picture because of the pregnancy. Felix believed that if the word got out about the affair and pregnancy, it would ruin his good image. Luis claimed he didn't want to get involved. He didn't want to have any additional issues with local law enforcement due to prior run-ins with the law. However, Felix was highly persistent and offered a large cash reward for the assistance, ultimately enticing Luis to get involved. Luis would also get another individual involved. On April 29, 2021, Felix spoke to Keishla on the phone to make sure she was still available for a meeting to discuss the pregnancy. Keishla agreed to the meeting and called her sister to let her know what was happening. Keishla's sister and her mother didn't feel comfortable with this meeting and believed that Felix might have ill intentions. However, nothing could stop Keishla from meeting up with him, because deep down inside, she thought that he would change for the better and eventually accept the pregnancy. Keishla arrived at the meeting alone, while Felix showed up in his pickup truck with Luis in the trunk. Keishla exited her car and got into Felix's car to show him the pregnancy test results. During this moment, Felix again encouraged Keishla to get an abortion, but she began to cry. she told him she didn't want to abort the baby. The discussion started to get heated, with both shouting back at one another until Felix decided to take his fist and use it to hit Keishla in the head. Once he hit Keishla, she temporarily lost consciousness. Upon waking up, Felix injected her with a combination of harmful and illegal substances. After injecting her, both Felix and Luis carried her body to the back of the car before tying her body to a concrete block and covering her with a tarp to prevent others from seeing her. Once they finished tying her to the cement block and covering her with the tarp, Felix got into his vehicle, and his accomplice, Luis, got into the driver's seat of Keishla's car. Together, the two drove to the bridge over the San Jose Lagoon. The duo looked around before removing Keishla's body from the vehicle and tossing her into the lagoon while she was still alive. They both also shot their firearms into the lagoon to ensure there was simply no chance for Keishla to survive the brutal attack. The following day, Keishla's co-workers began to get worried about her when they noticed she didn't show up for work and never called out sick. Because she didn't answer her phone, her co-workers reached out to Keishla's sister, who also couldn't get in touch with her. Beralise called her mother to tell her what was going on, and then she reached out to Felix. According to Felix, he was at home with his family and never went to a meeting with Keishla. Now more concerned than ever, Keishla's mom booked a flight from Florida to Puerto Rico in an attempt to look for her. People began posting about Keishla on social media. As these posts got more shares and likes, more information on the situation between Keishla and Felix began to surface. Word got out that not only was Keishla seeing Felix for years, but she was also pregnant by him before she went missing. Relatives spoke out about their suspicions, believing that Felix had something to do with Keishla going missing. On April 30th, Keishla's car was found abandoned on the city's east side. Her personal belongings were still inside the vehicle, which gave Keishla's family some hope that she might still be alive. Not long after the car was found, on May 1st, a person passing by the San Juan Lagoon noticed something odd. It looked like a human body was in the shallow water, so this individual made a police report. The police immediately went out to the lagoon and soon came across a horrific scene: the deceased body of Keishla Rodríguez Ortiz. Based on the condition of her body when found, it was apparent that Keishla had been in the water for several days. Once news of Keishla's death was made public, locals held rallies in hopes of raising awareness and finding the person behind the murder. Because Keishla let her sister know she was planning to meet up with Felix on the last day she was seen alive, the local authorities brought Felix in for questioning, where he continuously denied any involvement. He claimed to be at home with his family on the night of her disappearance. Many started to believe that Ellis had something to do with Keishla's disappearance and death. Ellis admitted to the authorities that she knew Felix was seeing Keishla behind her back, but she was not aware of the pregnancy until she'd heard about it in the news that day. Interestingly enough, when asked to confirm her husband's alibi, Elise said she couldn't do that because he was not home on the night of the murder. Investigators knew this meant that Felix was likely involved, so they checked traffic surveillance footage on the way to the bridge from which Keishla's body was thrown. While scanning through the footage, they saw both Felix and Keishla's car on the road. They also noticed Keishla's car was being driven by someone else other than her. The same day, the investigators decided to seize Felix's vehicle, where they would find some of Keishla's hair in the seats. Realizing that the cops were getting close to solving this case, Luis surrendered to the police before Felix had a chance to do so. Luis promised to tell the truth to receive a more lenient sentence for his role in Keishla's death. Following Luis's confession, Félix Verdejo faced multiple charges, including kidnapping resulting in death, carjacking resulting in death, and the termination of an unborn child, all in connection to the disappearance and demise of Keishla Rodríguez Ortiz. According to authorities, Verdejo allegedly abducted Rodríguez Ortiz, administered a fatal injection, restrained her limbs with wire, tethered her to a weighty block, and cast her off a bridge into a lagoon where her body was eventually discovered. The trial, delayed numerous times due to the extensive pandemic, concluded in July 2023, with Verdejo being convicted of kidnapping, resulting in death, and causing the death of an unborn child. He received a life sentence, with his attorney announcing plans to appeal the verdict. What are your reflections on this case? Do you feel that justice has been served now that Felix will spend the remainder of his life incarcerated? Additionally, what are your thoughts on Elise? Despite not facing charges, some speculate about her potential involvement in the crime.